But as Ken mentioned, Ken is one of the guys, the early stage to get into the Macau, and he knows the situation. Well, the number of the EGM or ETG is from the back in 2006 until today, the growing. And the revenue-wise, still 4%, 5%. But in terms of the gross gaming revenue, including table and the slots, keep increasing. So that's why pie chart still look like a 4%, 5%. But actually, slot revenue or ETG, EGM revenue going up. So it means economy and market volume in Macau still booming and very strong. That's very unique, and pie chart of the gross gaming revenue split to the slots and table games is very interesting in this market.
Okay. I want to clear up the difference between a slot and an EGT in this market, the definition of each. Obviously, the table game cap is kind of onerous on the operators, so they have to replace that with something that the players enjoy that kind of replicate the table games. Peter, can you explain how those are counted versus the table game cap?
Yeah, well, from a legislative point of view, they're counted as live tables. If they have a live dealer, it's counted as a live table. They use a license of a table, and the quota on those is restricted or capped. So there is a propensity to a lot of the casinos out there to have a lot of tables which are on the floor physically, but they don't have the license to open them. Okay. And obviously, as casino operators, we don't want vast areas of closed down tables. So the ETG has certainly filled that gap. And also the propensity to, I guess, the price point of entry on tables has significantly increased across most venues. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a $500 table in most casinos. Maybe the Venetian has a bit more mass gaming, but it's the price on the ETG is still the $50, $100, $200 up to $5. Right. And that's filled that niche. But we've seen most of the ETG play being incremental to slots and to tables, I guess. So it's created its own little pocket of players, which, one, can afford that price point, and two, have the acceptance of the electronic terminal versus the full live dealer. So. Okay, so those big stadiums we see with the live dealers, that's considered basically one table? No, there's a certain ratio of what tables can open, sort of how many licenses. It's usually one table license. You can have a physical table with 2 games of baccarat on. So
I see. Okay.
You physically get 2 games of baccarat with possibly 100, 200 seats on that if you wish.
I understand the government is thinking about redesigning the regulations that cover EGTs. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a bit of talk on the regulations at the moment, what they're going to be changed to, yeah. Okay,
great. So talk about how you entice players who can't afford those higher table game limits, the live table games, and what kind of appeal they have. Ken, is that part of the deal there with the electronic EGMs, that they have that lower limit?
Well, it's certainly where that area of the market's gone. It'd be nice to see if you could do if you could get some players onto the electronic type games and get the min bet up. But unfortunately, the operators here have used the electronic table games directly at that low-end market. As Peter said, I think actually on the floor downstairs, you're lucky if you can get a live baccarat table under 1,000 Hong Kong. That's a big bet. Yes. You can soon chew for some money if you stay there for a while.
No question.
So, I think it's just been the nature of the market, and the ETGs have ended up in the low-end market. It would be interesting to see how they would go in a high limit room. I actually think they could work.
Right. Oh, and what's the basic minimum bet then on an EGT?
Of 20, 50.
Yeah. Okay. So it's basically affordable then. Yeah. Okay, great. Let's talk about the slot machines. Sabi, you mentioned the themes that you're not just going to pick up a game from Australia or the U.S. that has a theme that are feasible for those markets. You're going to try to have more of an Asian theme that would appeal to this market. How has that been progressing, and how has the acceptance of the games been as you do that more and more?
Yeah, and probably more so. We're on a very strategic cusp, I think, from an overall business perspective. I think, based on everything that we're seeing around various regulations, various requirements. You know, when you try and tailor the various games and the market, especially trying to take the ETG situation into account. You know, the important thing is trying to create content that really tries to pull those individuals and people away from, you know, the traditional table games and ETGs. And, you know, the challenge that people like myself and Ken and everybody else has from a manufacturer perspective is trying to create an element of content that attracts an individual as soon as they walk through the door. And the only way you can really do that is by using, you know, as much localized characters, content, affiliation, something that an individual can sort of gravitate towards. So that's the journey that IGT have been on, probably over the last 2-3 years. And I think at the show today is really the outcome of that journey. You know, we've had a large number of developers visit casinos, listen to players, talk about the different, you know, with the operators, what is it that people are looking for, and then, you know, there's a totally different style of individual and game, right? Before it was always, you know, is it the graphics? Is it the presentation? But it's even more fundamental than that. It's the actual physical math.
The math,
It's
yeah.
completely different in this sort of region than you would potentially find anywhere else. And I think that's the most important thing that we've really been concentrating on, is not only just the look and feel, it's about what's the fundamental core of the game that attracts an individual. Because, you know, the players here are extremely smart, right? Very easily they'll go to a machine, play for a couple of minutes, and they'll know the type of individual, the type of game that you're playing. And that's the challenge that we have, but, you know, an exciting one.
So in general, do you find that Chinese slot players enjoy more volatility than some of the other markets?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they want to know how quickly they can, you know, get to that result and know whether they've won or lost, right? They're not an entertainment individual who wants to worry about time on device. For them, it's about how quickly can I get to the result. And, you know, the other key attribute